I'm David Hunt, and I'm the Art Hunter as well, and welcome to the Art Hunter. My guest today is this amazing artist who has got, I don't know, what he's got this thing about New York and on the streets and you know, his street posters all around Melbourne and Sydney at present. I am talking about a man who is a Collingwood supporter, so I like him even more right now. Marco Luccio, hello.
Thanks, David. Hello to you.
And now you're an award-winning artist. You've got works in 40 public and private galleries or institutions around the world. You've also got pieces in the New York Library and the National Gallery of Australia. Where did the love of art first come about for you?
I guess the first clear moment for me was when I was 8 years old and I was drawing with a big fat black texter on my garage wall. And I wasn't meant to, but I was just doing a figure of a little boy.
Yeah.
And he was wearing braces, and I sometimes wear, you know, braces and slacks and things like that. So I think maybe it was a self-portrait. And my sister walked in, one of my 6 sisters, walked in. And
a good Italian boy.
Good Italian boy. There's 2 brothers as well, so 9 kids. No TV. Plenty of pencils though to draw with. So yeah, I was drawing on the wall, and my sister walks in and said, you know, sort of yelled at me. But then she also said, "That's a really good drawing." And I thought, oh, I could get away with stuff with this technique. You know?
Yeah.
So I thought, I think that's the first time. And then through school, like even when I was a little kid, you know, you'd be doing your assignment, and what I would do, because my writing was so bad, I'd do all these little pictures on the side to illustrate the stories.
Oh, okay.
The teachers loved them.
Did they?
Yeah, so I got away with a lot of stuff.
Wow,
so
brilliant. And did you study art when you left school?
Yeah, so in year 12 was the first time, I guess, in year 9 they put me into extra art lessons because they recognised that I guess I had some sort of talent.
Yep.
And then always did extra art, and then did year 12 art, so TOP. And then went to Warrnambool of all places and did my first year there. And
Why? Why Warrnambool?
No one else would take me. No, it was so funny because I was in so Warrnambool was a stepping stone for me to get to RMIT.
Okay.
So after year 12, I had built a folio up, which I haven't really talked about this before, so it's really kind of interesting for me to talk about for me because I haven't really revealed why I went to Warrnambool. People don't often ask that. So I had done year 12 art and I'd built a folio for fine art. So, you know, everybody's assignments were always very clean and tidy, lots of little dots and lines, and mine were always messy. And my exam for the end of the year was a couch, and we had to draw a couch in a room, and mine looked like it was floating. And so I wasn't really built to apply for design courses, but that's what we were trained to apply for. So I didn't get into any of the design courses because I was a fine artist, as in, you know, painter. And so Warrnambool took me, and my science teacher, I remember my science teacher saying to me, because I said to him, should I repeat year 12? Or should I go and do this Warrnambool thing?
Yeah.
And he said, Marco, you know how many chicks you'll meet? And I thought, well, that's a good reason to go to Warrnambool. So, yeah.
Wow.
That's why I went to Warrnambool. Chicks? No, not really.
So did you come back into Melbourne, RMIT?
Yeah, and the nice thing is, when I first applied for the design courses, I didn't get into any of them. When I applied for fine art, I got into all of them.
Right.
So, and then I had my choice. And RMIT was one of the ones that said, yep, you come straight into second year. Because I'd done so much work. I really worked my butt off in Warrnambool. I had a massive folio full of lots of prints.
Yep.
And
because you do a bit of printing, don't you? Yep.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm really, have become known for is my printmaking. But RMIT had a woman called Herta Kluijpot, and she's the best dry pointer here in Australia and maybe the world. She's just brilliant.
Okay.
So I would have been prepared to repeat second year to get to her, because as an artist, you need mentors throughout your whole life.
Sure. And
you must get a really good one and learn as much as you can.
Yep.
So I had her, and I was prepared to repeat first year, but she said to me, no, come straight into second year because you've done all the work.
Okay.
So that was great.
Right.
And so, it was really, it was a great time for me there at RMIT.
And where did that take you after that? You know, what did you think, this is what I want to do now? Or were you still a little bit confused because you were too much worried about the chicks?
Excuse me. That's very funny. Hang on. Was I too worried about the chicks once I was in second year, or do you mean
After you finished at RMIT?
After I finished at RMIT, yeah, I was still a young fella, so I still had some concerns about chicks. But I did an honours year, so I stayed on and was lucky enough to be able to do an honours year. But then after that, it gets a bit interesting for me. My life after art school is something I don't often get to discuss, but it gets really kind of funky and interesting, and I do different things that people don't know I've done.
Like what?
I started my own clothing company. I had a sportswear company, supplied Rebel and Maya, started a personal training company, as in a training diary.
So where did the art come into it, or did you get sidetracked?
No, I was still doing my art.
You were still doing it?
I was still entering competitions and making art, but I'd had enough of being broke.
Yes.
I was really broke, and I liked the idea of having money. Just wanted some money and chicks. So
the money,
get your money for nothing.
Chicks.
Get your money for nothing, and that's terrible. We've got to stop saying chicks. But so I just did all sorts of stuff. But to put myself through art school, I did like pizza deliveries. I was really bad at it. The first pizza I delivered, I got the box and went like this. You never put your pizza box like that.
Sideways,
sideways, yeah. That's what they used to call me. That was my nickname. But so after art school, I was really broke. I had done a lot already. I'd already been entering comps and had been collected into some major collections as a student. So I was off and running, and I'd had a pretty good CV already after 4 years at art school.
Yeah.
But I just wanted some money, and so then I did all sorts of jobs, and then did that for a while, and then thought, well, I'm going to start up a clothing sportswear company, make a lot of money so that then I can do my art, because that was the goal, to get back to doing the art. I wanted to be an artist.
Yep.
And I thought if I start a company, so I actually started a company, not just a little business. So I had a company, I've never run a business before. So I just decided I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And it was really successful. And we employed people. I took on 2 directors, and we only had to work 3 days a week, and I could just do my art.
Wow.
Yeah. But it took over for about 8 years.
Of course.
And then slowly we worked less, and I could get back. But then what I did, because I always had this thing in my mind, Picasso had said, you must at some point live off what you want to do. Don't have the safety boat, you've got to cut and burn the safety boats.
Yep.
And so I went broke again. I actually, we didn't sell the business for much. Between the 3 of us, we didn't get much money. But I'm really proud of one component of it that's still running, which I don't have anything to do with, but I'm proud of it. And it taught me a lot to do it, to deal with people, how to deal with people and that kind of stuff. But so I went to be broke again. So literally,
for your art's sake?
For my art's sake. So what I did is I swapped money for time. I realised very quickly that it's the time. So I've always had either more money and less time, or vice versa. You've always it's a hard balance.
Yep.
And so I teach people who I've mentored, I've said to them, the sooner you swap money for time, and the young people these days, David, don't want to hear that.
Of course they don't, yeah. But it's that sort of society now, isn't it? You need the latest mobile phone. And
yeah, well, see what you just said then? That's how I became a full-time artist. Yep. My phone belongs to a dead man.
You didn't kill him?
Well, they say I killed a man in Naples, but that's Caravaggio. But I like to say that because it adds value to my work.
True.
But the dead man was actually my father-in-law, a brilliant man.
Okay.
So I got his phone before he died. I pulled it out of his pocket. But it's an old phone, but it's a good phone. I don't need a new phone.
Yeah.
I have an old TV. People have given me my furniture, but I live as a full-time artist. That's how I make my money. And so swapping money for time, people don't want to do it. I was talking to a woman who's an assistant to somebody who's quite well known in the engineering world, and I met with her, and she said, "What's the secret?" And I said, "There is no secret really." I said, "But the real secret is swapping money for time." And then she said, "So it's people that you know?" And I said, "No, I just said it's swapping money for time." And she said, "I can't do that. I'm too used to earning dollars."
Dollars, exactly. Now, I'm just going to jump a bit forward here because it fits in beautifully. You said you got your phone from your father-in-law before he died.
He's beautiful man. Beautiful.
And you're like, all of a sudden you end up in New York to paint, and you end up in a studio in the Chrysler building.
Yeah, which we can see behind you there. It's so I'd always wanted to go to New York because when I was a student in Warrnambool, so it's a good tie-in. When I was a student in Warrnambool, we were shown the film Metropolis, 1922, Fritz Lang, German expressionist, silent film. Not a good film to take a date to, I've learnt. It's too silent. But anyway...
well, all that kissing.
Oh, David, I don't kiss on first dates. But the movie is a black and white, brilliant film, but Fritz Lang used New York as his inspiration.
That's right.
I thought, right, I'm going to go to New York. If he used that, if that inspired that film, which some people think is the greatest film ever made, I'm going to New York. And I met Deborah, who you know, my ex-wife, and she made it happen because I was always really the dreamer and she was the doer, like made it happen. And so she said, well, you need to go to New York and we need to go for 3 months. And so we packed everything up and gave up our teaching jobs, anything, you know, and we were paying a mortgage here in Melbourne. We were paying rent in where we were living in the city, and then we went and paid rent for 3 months in New York. And we put it all on our Visa card, and we tell people we were sponsored by the Commonwealth Bank. So I hope this goes out to like Commonwealth Bank and they see it and they go, we should really sponsor Marco. Yeah. But the credit card, it's what we put it on. And it took us 18 months to pay that off, but it's the best thing I ever did.
Well, how did you end up in the studio, which you got for free in the Chrysler
10
building?
years I had it for. It just ended this year.
Whoa.
Well, the top part ended. I now have a couple of little spots in the building, but the top part is now, put it this way, the studio is so good, they're turning it into a observation deck.
Right.
And it's 360-degree views of New York. It's where the old Cloud Cub was. So in the 30s, you'd go there and get drunk illegally.
Right, yep.
And it is the most amazing experience I've ever had. Sometimes I'd be up there at 2 a.m. painting New York scenes at night. So I ended up with that because we were renting a very small little apartment on 29th Street. The beauty of that is that those people saw my work and said, oh, you might like my friend's workplace. And they introduced us, and it was the top of the Chrysler.
And they just gave it to you?
They said, come and work, come and paint. I've had an exhibition up there for 10 years.
Wow.
And one day...
How lovely is that, though, that there are people in a city like New York that they could get so much money for in the Chrysler building. Come on.
Yeah, they didn't charge me anything.
And they didn't charge you, you know, like, yes, you were an artist and they were supporting you as an artist. But isn't that one of the most loveliest stories? And you must be, you know, like...
Very grateful.
Yeah, grateful and also proud that they took you on in that respect.
New York, so a couple of things you've just said, right? It is wonderful. And people misinterpret New Yorkers as being a bit brash and aloof and distanced. But... it doesn't take long for them to judge you, like in a good way. They'll make a judgment. This person can be trusted, that one can't, because they have to, because everything's so quick.
Yeah.
So they immediately they said, yeah, come and paint. And then basically I had I used to go there sometimes at 2 a.m. and just, because I'd been painting on the streets, take my big canvases up there. The security guards knew me.
Yeah, of course.
They'd always comment, want to see the painting. I had to give them a blurb about what I'd been doing.
Yeah.
Because normally you're not allowed beyond the foyer.
No, you're not. No, as a general public.
No.
Yeah.
But then you get in the lift, and the lift, as soon as you get in there, it's got all these little Chrysler things around the edges. It's wooden paneling. It's like, and then as you go higher, it's almost like from the first floor, you get to the 67th floor. So I was up only one floor below the very top.
Yeah.
And as you're going up, it's almost like you're going back to the 20s. You know, it takes you right. It seriously does.
Yeah.
I remember carrying huge canvases that I'd been painting into those elevators, and people would come in and say, in American accents, you know, that's amazing, you know, where can I buy it? I'd say up the top. And they'd go, we'll take that one. And it was amazing.
You were selling it to people?
I had 1 month there where I sold more canvases than I did in an exhibition. It was just crazy.
Wow.
It was really phenomenal, and they love it. And because New Yorkers love New York.
Yeah.
And so I was just basically passionate about what they were passionate about.
So you mentioned it a couple of times there about arriving back with your canvases after painting on the street. You did that a lot, didn't you? You would take a blank canvas on the street, pick a spot on the street, and you would lay the canvas down and start painting. Yeah. What did New Yorkers think of somebody?
Yeah, it was crazy. I could only do that once or twice a week because I was there for 3 months at a time. I had to psych myself up for those trips.
Right.
It was nice.
Why?
Why? Because as much as I am happy to speak about my work, when I'm painting and drawing, like all artists, you really don't want to be bothered. It's a hassle to be, you know, you're painting away and then all of a sudden you're worried about somebody stealing your stuff because there's 30 people around you. You kind of have to have your wits about you. There's constant commentary. People want to sing about what you're doing. They want to, yeah. I had somebody rapping about what I was doing.
Fantastic.
So, you know, it's really interactive.
Yeah.
So like in Paris, they kind of leave you alone.
Yeah.
In Italy,
they would talk a lot in Italy.
in Italy, they give you advice.
Yeah.
Oh, you really need to do this a bit better. Make the nose a bit bigger. But in New York, it's actually interactive.
Yeah.
So you have to psych up for that.
Yep.
And plus, I was carrying 6-foot canvases on a subway.
Yeah.
Imagine that, walking into a subway, carrying a 6-foot canvas, and then carrying it back, and people thought it was wet. The paint was dry because I use acrylic.
Yeah.
But like I'd often be on a subway with people like wearing Prada and not wanting me to touch them with, you know, and they'd be really angry that I was on there, but
Yeah.
I couldn't get a taxi or a cab because they thought it was wet.
Yeah.
So they didn't want me in their cab, even the big cabs.
Yeah. But what about even getting security people at the stations? They didn't stop you?
No, surprisingly not.
Yeah,
no,
I
I'd
thought
carry
you
them up
would've.
the stairs.
Okay.
Huge, I'm talking huge canvases.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes really late at night I'd get back and I'd be so tired. Or on windy days when I'd paint under the Brooklyn...
yes, of course it would catch the
on
the
windy
canvas.
days painting under the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
It was so physical. That whole New York experience of painting is so physical and mentally exhausting that I'd have to take 2 days away from doing anything with the public after that. And so I'd go back up to the Chrysler and paint in the silence, you know, just look over the city. But yeah, the street stuff, like under the Brooklyn Bridge, was also at times when I was really open to people, it was really beautiful. Like I remember once this little girl came up and she started asking me these really beautiful questions about the work and how much paint do I have? And I don't have kids, so it was really nice just to have a little connection with a person, a little person. The funniest ones are the ones who want to be photographed with you.
Okay.
But you're painting. You know.
Yeah. So all of a sudden here you are in New York, and you're like the experience, you know, like whoa, you know, like it must be.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, exactly. And you start collecting postcards.
Correct. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Thanks, David. While I was painting, I would also on the weekends, nearly every Sunday, I'd go to a flea market or an antique shop. I'd hunt around for these postcards.
Used ones, they'd be ones.
Old ones. Some of them are 100 years old.
Wow.
Really beautiful. It started because there was these two guys who were having a stoop sale, which I've learnt that a stoop is just, you know, like on Friends when you see the stairwell at the front of the house.
Yep.
And they'd put their stuff up there and then they'd let you in their house. One of them was an actor and I brought one of his old photos of him acting. It was great. But they had a box of postcards and that started it all. And they lived 2 doors from where we lived in New York.
Okay.
And so every time on the way back from the Chrysler, I'd walk past their little stoop thing and I'd buy a postcard here, a postcard there. Then I started buying a whole box of them. Then I started looking for more boxes of them, and now I have boxes of them. I don't have a studio anymore.
And
I started drawing on them.
You started drawing on them, and you would take them into galleries. And
like the museums, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the idea for me is that a postcard is a time capsule. It's an artefact. It's now something of the past. So it belongs.
The beautiful old stamps and
some of them are so frail that if you touch them, the edges break. Some of the stamps are amazing, beautiful stamps of Abraham Lincoln and Statue of Liberty, and so what I thought was, okay, I've done paintings of New York, I've done dry points of New York. What can I do to tell the stories of New York? And I thought, well, people have sent these postcards from overseas to New York or vice versa.
Yep.
So they were like documents of people's voices from the past. And I thought, well, how can I get the stories of the New Yorkers into my work? And so I wanted the postcards to be something that documented the stories rather than the city. Mm-hmm. So it's still about civilization, but rather than being literal, I thought I'm going to put everything that I know about New York in different ways into this. So I will take them to the museum and draw things like, you know, classical Greek faces from the Met onto these postcards, because somehow, to me, there was a connection. I couldn't explain it at first, but over the years, it's becoming clearer and clearer that basically, to me, those artefacts are just as gorgeous and beautiful and will become as important as any of these beautiful artefacts.
Yep.
And they're a ready-made artefact.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the way that people communicate these days, it's so quick, you know, via text.
Yeah.
But to sit down and write a postcard takes a bit of thinking. And you can just hear the people's voices as you read them.
Yeah, beautiful.
But also the patina on them.
Yep.
And the text is almost like hieroglyphics to me anyway. It's almost like sometimes it's irrelevant, but if I find something really beautiful, I'll leave that bit showing. But yeah, they just gathered on my studio floor. And while I'm painting New York paintings, paint would drop on them.
Yeah.
Because I'd heard of Francis Bacon's studio. Have you heard of his studio where you couldn't open the door?
Yep.
And he loved it when things were stepped on.
Yeah.
So I did the same.
Okay.
So-
But you also would put a whole lot of, a huge wall of them,
Yeah.
metres high and wide.
Correct, yeah.
And then do a painting
Over the top.
over the top of the postcards.
Yeah, and I guess
That's cool.
Yeah, I guess the one in particular, and I didn't know if it would work like that, because I've also put single ones, like, 200 single ones together,
Yep.
and they create like a tapestry or a mosaic of history. And so with the ones where they were one big piece, something like a Congo figure, an African Congo figure, drawn at the Met, and then scratched onto a sheet of copper that's 6 foot by 4 foot, 6 months to scratch out, and then sticky taping all the postcards together,
Whoa.
finding all the right ones.
Yeah.
So then also you have like, it goes, the colours kind of shift and change on the postcards. So I pick cream ones here and white ones here and darker and lighter. So you have this shift, this beautiful shift of tones. So you use it like a palette.
Yeah.
And then I would print the dry point over it, and it would just blow me away what would happen. The first one I did, I was blown away, and I thought, I did not predict that at all, and that's the beauty of dry pointing and printmaking as opposed to painting.
Yeah.
Often, with painting, you still get the surprises, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like life, right? Surprises are the best
Yeah,
bits.
absolutely.
Anything planned, why do it?
Yeah. Now, with some of your New York paintings, sorry, I can't get away from New York.
Oh, I
'cause
love New York,
There's
so-
other
Well, it's a big
countries.
chunk. It's a big chunk.
Is that you often paint with your hands?
Yeah, sometimes,
You're actually your sky. And I've made a comment on this when I've seen a lot of your exhibitions, that your sky plays a major part in your painting, doesn't it? And it's
I
often
love the
quite
skies.
wild and you're like out of control in a way.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that. I've got a collector in New York who said to me, I'd buy just your skies. And so she's thinking that I should do a whole... Yeah. So you're onto something. You and her are onto something.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Deal.
You'll get a commission from every sky painting. But the idea too is that with the skies, because I'm doing a lot of architectural, sort of straight lines and, vertical things, it's sort of nice to have the curve of the sky.
Yep.
So it's a very sort of curvy, lovely kind of...
But it's wild sky a lot of the time,
I like
isn't
action.
it? Yeah.
If I want action in the painting,
Yeah.
in the print.
Yeah.
I don't want... I like stillness when it's used in a way that, you set out to say, okay, this is going to be a very still picture. That happens. But often with my work, it's about the furious energy that's out there. Like, it's furious in New York. So why shouldn't... The sky should represent that.
Yeah.
And it does, because I'm also... The reason why, David, that they are so energetic is that I'm painting them sometimes for 6 to 8 hours a day. So I'm painting in the morning.
Yep.
The sky changes. So what
Yep.
do I do? So an impressionist would leave it and come back at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'll turn a day painting into a night painting because I'm an idiot and I want to make it hard for myself because it is hard.
Yeah.
And then it becomes more than just a painting about the subject you're doing, but rather about the whole experience, the whole passage of time. It's a time capsule of what you just did that day.
Yeah.
And it changes. So it's like 2 or 3 paintings in the one painting. And often I look back sometimes and think, I wish I had left it as a daytime painting. So I really go with the flow.
Yep.
At one point, a homeless guy came up and talked to me, and I put him in the picture. I think I put him in the sky, like he was sort of just appearing in the sky.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of a weird thing to do, but it was kind of cool.
And a lot of colour.
Sometimes,
New
especially
York,
New York.
is a lot of colour.
Yeah.
Or you're printing, it's a
Monochromatic.
grey and white or black and white.
Well, yeah.
And where there's so much colour in your paintings, then all of a sudden there's no colour.
Well, I like to do both. It's funny
Yep.
because a lot of artists, some artists will make their prints look like their paintings and vice versa.
Yep.
They almost have a way of translating it. But I think I like to use painting for painting's sake, a print for print's sake, and kind of do different things. So what a print can do for me is really accentuate lines and activity and mark making and expression. But painting can have power in colour. So sometimes I'll add red in the painting, even if the red's not there.
Yep.
So my students used to call it 3 o'clock red because I'd often say to them, 3 o'clock, if you haven't got red in your picture, just find an excuse because red does so much.
Yeah.
It changes a painting.
Fantastic.
So I love colour as it's almost arbitrary though. It's not, I don't set out to say, oh, it's evening, so the colours should represent the evening. It comes up naturally, you can't help it.
Yep.
They come through in the pictures.
So you've also been to, you mentioned it earlier, Paris
Yeah.
and Italy as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
painting.
Yeah.
How different were they, like those European cities compared to New York? And you did mention how the people were a lot freer in New York, and Italy, they would tell you what to do.
Give me tips.
But I don't. So I'm not saying that side of it.
Bit of a stereotype,
I mean, just the feeling of, because the light would be so different, and the noise.
My immediate thoughts are, I mean, Paris is a beautiful city. New York's an exciting city. So Paris is sort of like, if I had to marry one of them, I'd probably marry Paris, but I'd have an affair with New York.
Yep.
It's so vibrant and exciting, but it can be really overwhelming. Whereas Paris, I reckon you could get healthier by living there. In New York, I reckon you could get a heart attack sooner or later. It's so intense. I don't know how my friends who live there do it.
Yeah.
And people often say, well, you go and live there. I don't think I'll ever live there, but I love it. I love it so much. But
likewise.
Yeah, I love it so much. But it's so the real difference for me is that Paris is a place. If you said you've won a week's holiday anywhere in the world just to relax and enjoy beauty, I'd go to Paris.
Well, it is. It's a very beautiful city, isn't it? It's, and you tend to forget about it, and then all of a sudden you see a shot of it, and you go, I forgot how beautiful that city was.
And New York. The reason I went to New York was I often go to these cities because of art history. So New York for me was like cultural in the 30s. That's the city I wanted to see, the buildings I wanted to see. So that's why ending up with the studio and the Chrysler was crazy, because of it's an Art Deco masterpiece. And I'd read about the Chrysler, and to end up there was amazing. But I went there because of jazz. So I've painted paintings at night on Broadway, in the middle of Broadway, to sort of reflect that era of Georgia O'Keeffe and those people that were painting those paintings in New York at night. So often I'm doing things in reference to art history. I like that. I like having not the weight of it, because sometimes I can feel that way. When you first go to these cities, you feel like, well, what have I got to offer? What are New Yorkers why do they want an Aussie guy doing their city?
But the lovely thing is that you did come back after you've been to New York, and you put on an exhibition here of your New York paintings, and it did extremely well, didn't it? Here's Melbourne people buying a painting from you of New York to put on their wall here.
I'm pretty lucky. I've got collectors who'll collect, and so they'll buy my postcard or they'll buy an assemblage. I'm lucky in that sense. And I'm careful when I say luck, because I don't believe that luck has much to do with anything.
No, I agree with you.
So I say fortunate, maybe. I don't know, but yeah.
But it's also your personality, and which I was going to bring up. And now's a perfect time. Is that
this is
you were in a Collingwood football jumper at one stage.
Were you there on that opening?
I was, and you got an opera singer to sing.
Good old Collingwood Forever.
Yep, exactly.
And I hope you sang along.
I did, of course I did.
So there was only one Carlton supporter, and he didn't sing.
And and the fact is, because of your background when you had a business, your sports business, you do street posters for your exhibition. There were New York posters around Melbourne at the time, and one of the well-known bookshops in Melbourne, because you had a booklet, a program, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and you're like, and there was the front window. You had.
I drew on it as well on the window. Drew New York scenes.
So you actually know what you do, because a lot of artists run away and go, oh no, I'm the artist. I can't commercialise myself. You openly do that, don't you?
Well, I'll say one thing. Do you know what happens if you don't promote?
What?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Now, what happens if you sell work? You make more work. Everything I've made, any money I've made, and when I was with Deborah, same thing, anything we earned went back into our art. What does that mean now? Well, I get to go to New York every year for 3 months. What does it mean when people buy my work? I get to buy the best materials, I get to buy better canvases. So why wouldn't I encourage people to collect my work and buy it? But one thing that I always had a pact with myself, and when Deborah and I were together, we always said that if we ever have to have a show where no one buys anything, we allow that. We allow a buffer, like as if to say we'll be broke again for 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And that's okay. So we've had years where we've made things that might not sell as well or whatever, but we've always said as long as you stay true, what will happen is over a period of your lifetime, even the stuff that didn't sell well here will sell later.
Okay.
And so it's backing yourself
Yeah.
for a long-term thing. And to be able to risk everything, seriously. So I had a show of abstracts in the middle of a career that I had established cityscapes for. I threw in an abstract show, which was people said to me, I don't even recognise it as yours. Good. I like that.
But does that disturb you though, when you're like, or do you get disappointed that people don't buy that particular art? You put on an exhibition like that.
It actually did as well as any other show I had.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm not lucky. I work hard. What's another word? Fortunate?
Fortunate.
Yeah. It might not have done as, say, my most, successful show, but it did as well as most artists would hope their best show would do.
And I love that you commented just a moment ago as well, saying that you often sell things down the track that might not sell today.
Oh, look.
But, and I hear that a lot about artists, that they sell something 2 or 3 years later and you go,
20 years later. I just
20.
sold the Paris piece, talking about Paris, I sold the Paris piece to a really important guy here in Melbourne who'd seen it 10 years ago. And he said, have you still got that? He had to pay 4 times more. He should have got it 10 years ago. But he brought it. And you never, and you got to just keep doing, you know what, the more honest you are with what you do, the more money, I shouldn't say that, the more success comes to you, because people love that.
Yeah.
They love integrity. Because what are the best songs? The ones that have the most heart and are written from the truth. You think of Nick Cave songs and David Lynch, who makes amazing films. They all say the same thing. You do it for yourself. So you're saying about, being able to sort of tell people about it. You've got to tell people about it. I mean, I don't meet too many artists who say they don't want to sell their work. It's just that they don't want to do the hard work and the difficult stuff. Like, doing interviews is hard. You have to think about and articulate things, and it's difficult. I'd probably rather if I didn't have to do 80% of what I do when it comes to promoting it. If people just flock to my shows without me telling them about it, I'd say yes. I'd say, let's do that.
COVID comes along, hard time for everyone, especially the arts.
Yeah.
You do something with birds. What sort of birds, and what did you do? Albatrosses?
Albatrosses, yes, that's correct, actually. Albatrosses, that's the plural. I'm glad you didn't say seagulls. A couple of people have thought they were seagulls.
I've already interviewed you about this before,
okay, so you're not so clever. Okay. No. So the albatross comes from a book I did with the author John Hughes, and one of the images was 2 birds, 2 albatross with their beaks crossed.
Yep.
So what I thought is, when COVID hit, I thought immediately of the how some people are going to really struggle, with the whole not being able to see each other. And also had never made any art that involved a social kind of message, so sort of like social activism, I've got to watch how I say this. I wanted to touch people on the streets. Sounds a bit sus, depending. Yeah, so I wanted to touch... Emotionally. Not physically. Emotionally wanted to touch people on the streets. So I thought, what better... So I spoke to John at Rock Posters, who you mentioned earlier, who had done my posters on the streets. And I said to John, look, with these posters that you're doing, I don't imagine you're going to have a lot of rock bands coming out during COVID. He said, got no one. And I said, what do you think? We do something to really send a message of love, hope and trust. And he just said yes immediately. He said, let's do it. So it was a collaboration between the 2 of us.
Okay.
And they went out to Melbourne and Sydney, 2 birds, and the words were love, hope and trust. I chose those words really carefully. I sent them to a few of my closest people and said, which words, and I manipulated it a bit.
Yep.
So we'll get rid of the word this and put this instead. Then it sat beautifully, love, hope, trust. Love, because like the Beatles say, that's all you need. Trust, you got to have trust in yourself, trust in your process. And during COVID, we really needed to trust each other.
Absolutely.
That we do the right thing.
Yep.
And hope. And hope was a little nod to Shepard Fairley's poster in New York in America about Barack Obama, who when he just had the words hope.
Yep.
And the word hope, I mean, you always got to have hope. I really get discouraged when artists say, I'm giving up hope, or I'm feeling hopeless, or...
Yeah, hopeless is a big word.
Yeah, and sometimes we get that way. And I thought, well... And it worked. People were photographing them and putting them on Instagram. And nearly every day, I'd get onto Instagram and somebody had hashtagged it and said things like, in St Kilda here, somebody wrote, walking past, I think it was Ackland Street or somewhere, and they said, this message just lifted my spirits and I walk past it every morning and I love it.
Yep.
And things like that. And people were kind of connecting to me in a way that the normal work wouldn't.
Yep.
And it allowed me to kind of basically almost have like an exhibition, a street art exhibition. It's a street poster. And then I invented the little postcards, which you've seen.
Yep.
And the postcards were a way of people, again, it's the postcard, I love postcards. So 56,000 of them went out.
Whoa.
And people were writing in almost, several a day saying, and people wrote in after hearing my interview on your station, can I have the postcards, please? And then they'd send them off to people. So I had people also in New York, Canada, but mainly in Australia. And the messages that they were sending me, via the website, because I had a little section where they could leave a note, I've kept those and I'll keep those forever. Like I'll do something with those words. It was amazing.
Now, without giving too much away, because you might be planning a new exhibition down the track, have you, through COVID, have you started developing something new, something exciting?
Yeah.
And is it getting near the end? Will it be exhibited
November.
soon? November?
Yeah, November this year.
Right, okay.
It's Greek mythology. It's images of Greek mythology, and I can speak about it because it's already the promo machine will gear up soon, so I have to talk about it. So John Hughes, who wrote The Garden of Sorrows, he was shortlisted for the Miles Franklin last year.
Yep.
An amazing writer. He's written 10 books. He's won awards, brilliant writer. And he's written 10 fables about Greek mythology. The crazy and wonderful thing is Medea is set in a New South Wales detention centre.
Oh.
So he set some of the Greek mythology in Australian settings.
Yep.
And others are in more traditional settings.
Yep.
But it's inspired in me things that I've never done before. I've hired models to pose in kind of the poses that I needed. It's an epic. It's an odyssey, if you.
Wow. And have you set it in modern time, or is
He's done a bit of both.
Right.
A bit modern and a bit old world.
Right.
And so it's been about 3 years in the making so far. It'll probably be 4 years by November.
Yep.
And there's 100 images.
Yep.
Drawings, paintings, and a lot of assemblages as well. So like horses made out of wood, metal bits. I go for a walk on the train line near me, and I pick up a bit of wire that looks like a horse's head.
Yeah.
The next day I pick up a long bit of metally bit.
So in other words, all those trains that are crashing at present are when you pull the pins out. Is that what
you
you're
know what's
doing?
really funny is I take a lot of those pins, but there's an adjacent railway track.
Yeah,
which is the
sure.
old. But what's really funny, that's right, David, what's really funny is that on one of my sessions, because this has happened to me before, a train has once stopped.
Yep.
They've called the police because they thought that maybe I was planning to do something to the track. They get really concerned if they see a man.
Yeah, yeah.
But here I am with a backpack, right, at night, picking up stuff. So what do I do when the train comes? I dive into the grass, seriously. A 50-something-year-old man diving into the grass in the mud. I get up covered in mud because I know what will happen. They stop, and then they call the police, and then you have to go through all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I had a backpack full of metal stuff. I got drawers full of them now, all laid out. Like one of them's called Spartans, and it's just the heads of Spartans.
Ah, okay.
Great rusty bits.
Wow.
I can't wait to show those.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about those than anything else.
Yeah, fantastic. Marco, brilliant talking to you as always. And I love your enthusiasm. I love how excited you get about what you do and life. Do
you reckon I'm doing all right for my age? Are you going to say that?
You're doing all right for your age. You're doing all right. So thank you.
Thank you, David. It's wonderful.
So thank you for watching. I'm David Hunt, and you've been watching The Art Hunter.